Alright, I'm back from the trip, the Colorado adventure, and I've had a couple people actually ask me about the gear that I took and if there was anything specifically I would do differently. So I pretty much just unloaded everything here in the garage when I got back, and I'm getting ready to put it all away, and I thought I would just do this real quick. So ignore the fact that there's like a hot mess in here right now, but it is a good opportunity before I start putting everything away to show you what I took with me on the trip. In some areas I overkilled it, and in some areas I nailed it just right, and then I can't think of anything that I wish I would have taken that I didn't. But anyway, all of this at some point or another was in the Jeep. I've already kind of pulled some stuff out of this container, and this toolbox, which I normally keep mounted in the back, is empty right now. So just going through and reorganizing. But here's what I took. I did have this glass water bottle. I never used it. It was underneath the seat in case we ran out of water and for some reason needed a container that I could boil in or whatever. I took a lot of water. I bought 4 cases of these, and we pretty much used everything but that right there. So we tried to stay hydrated as well as we could, and I think that worked out well. For tools, these are my 2 primary tool kits I keep in the Jeep. This is, you know, it's got all the Torx and hex drivers a guy could need, which comes in handy. This actually turned out to be a huge benefit. I forget what this style of socket is called, but it's pass-through. So if you look, like, they're hollow, so you don't have to worry about a deep socket or a shallow socket. Where this came in particularly handy is when it came to Drew's bike and having to pull his spark plug. He didn't have a spark plug wrench, but as it turns out, with these being pass-through sockets, they make great spark plug sockets because the spark plug can fit through. And if you've never seen these, they work like that. So anyway, the spark plug was allowed to go through, and that saved us because it turns out this tool became necessary to get his bike running again. So that's it. On the smaller size of these, by the way, like these smaller, like, in fact, it was 8mm for changing his oil. These have more of a tendency to sort of strip on the smaller sides. So for that reason, I also keep a standard socket set, and oh, that's in here. So we ended up using some of these, which is just, as you would expect, just a standard socket set. But it turns out that smaller 8mm, you know, a true hex socket worked better. So anyway, glad I had both sets. I did use them. While I'm in here, let's just go ahead and look in this. I did have a board. This board would be used as a base for the high lift. As a matter of fact, I've got holes drilled, and my high lift base will fit in there, and I've got some bolts in the glove box if I want to permanently attach this, or not permanently, but just literally attach it to the board for security. But the board's good for a variety of things. I always just keep it with me. 4x4, similar thing, block, whatever I need it for. I've even got a 2x4 down here. The spade for my pull pal is here. Gloves for working on the Jeep, which quite frankly I used less than I probably should have. I still got dirty messing around with the bike and the Jeep. I've got my folding shovel here, which did come in handy. You might have seen a video of me getting Drew out of the snow. These are the tensioners for my tire chains. I do have a replacement adjustable sleeve, sort of a backup, because I'm testing the Yeti steering attenuator on the drag link, just in case I had any problems. Ron took care of me and made sure I had a standard adjustment sleeve. Never had any problems with the attenuator, so that sleeve remains unused. This is a fib for the rethreading my winch line if I needed to redo that for any reason. So I have that. Lots of bug spray. We had bug spray pretty much for the whole trip. I have a random selection of fluids, starting fluid, PB blaster, brake fluid, oil, brake clean, more brake fluid, Rain-X, and heat. I did end up using the brake clean to clean off the spark plug, for example, in Drew's bike. I don't think I really need anything else. I think we may have used PB blaster for a couple things. I have a siphon here, just a standard siphon pump, cheap, in case we need to move gas from one location to another. The concern was that maybe for Drew's bike, if he consumed more gas than we could carry, that if we had to in a pinch, we could pull gas out of the Jeep. We never needed that. This is just a metal tube that I'm have in here in case I needed it as a breaker bar. This bag has an assortment of fuses, 3 different sizes of fuel line, which we actually use the fuel line for draining Drew's fuel tank when it got water in the gas. And then I have spare stainless steel brake cables, one for the front, one for the rear. I didn't need those, but I was happy to have them around. I mean, I've been wheeling with friends who even in just stock vehicles ended up with a weird random pinched brake line. And so originally I was going to get stock brake lines, but it turns out there's a right and left and a front and a rear, so you end up having to have a full set of 4. But with the aftermarkets, they're just front and rear, and they're sort of ambidextrous from left to right. So World Tour Off-Road hooked me up and allowed me to buy one rear one and one front one, and then they kept the other rear one and the front one all in hand at their shop. So if you need a spare set of brake lines, a front and a rear, go to World Tour Off-Road because they have the other half of this. So thanks, Paul, for not making me buy the entire set. That's pretty much, I forget what else I had in here. Invisible glass, which I did use to clean my windows from time to time. We did have some other camping type stuff in here, which I no longer have. Most of the camping stuff is already gone, put away. I did have some windshield washer fluid. This was brand new, and I filled up my washer fluid whenever I left, so I used a lot of washer fluid. So I'm glad I had this. It kept me flowing in that. Hydraulic bottle jack. You never know when that's going to come in handy. Batteries. We had a heater. By the way, that is one thing that did not work. I don't have it here, but we had sort of like that camp heater for the tent. Drew had it, and at like trying to camp at 12,000 feet or whatever we were at, the thing wouldn't light. So we ended up not having the heater that we thought we were. Let's see, tire chains. Did a video on these. These are the ones with the V-bars. Those came in handy. I didn't need this. I'm glad to always have it. This is a tire repair kit. I went with Safety Seal because arguably they seem to be sort of the original, and a lot of people really like their plugs. So I just bought the full kit. And like I said, haven't used it, but nice to have on hand, especially for somebody like me who has actually experienced having 2 flat tires in one trail run, which is not fun. And being in Colorado with only 1 spare, I figured I needed a way to repair tires if needed. This is a Gore-Tex outer set. This is both a jacket and pants. This came in handy when Drew's super suit started to leak. I lent him this, so he was able to stay dry. I usually keep those in the Jeep in case I get trapped in the rain without top or anything. Funnel, I think we use that for changing his oil. Outside of that, I didn't use it. This is a set of wrenches. obviously came in handy. And then I had a couple of ammo cans here with tools. All these tools were in this ammo can, but while I'm in here, I had a U-joint that I didn't need, some extra wire, a humongo socket for axle work, which I did not need, thankfully, some baling wire for whatever reason, including tire repairs, and just, random electrical tape and stuff. So a whole bunch of tools. Like I said, I've been overkill on some of this stuff, but I guarantee you there is a sense of satisfaction in needing tools and not having to worry about whether or not you have them. You just go find them. Same thing here, a whole ammo can full of various wrenches and pliers and cutters and things like that. So lots of sunscreen we had, lots of baby wipes. We use baby wipes a lot to keep clean hands, take baths with them, whatever we need. I had a torque wrench. I had this breaker bar wrench here, 1/2 inch. Again, didn't need it, but nice to have. This just has maybe some rain gear in it. Let's see what else. Whole bunch of tie downs, never used them. Umbrella, who cares? We used lots of paper towels. I had regular beach towels. Obviously some Colorado backcountry. I actually used this quite a bit while we were out to try and identify places to wheel where we were, and we did run a couple of these routes based on the information I found in this book. I actually had this book when I lived in Colorado, so it came in handy for this trip to pull it back out. This actually was a huge help. This was just a moving blanket from Harbor Freight, $4 or whatever I paid for this thing. We used it all the time. When Drew was working on his bike, if I was wanting to crawl underneath the Jeep to look and make sure everything was okay, the moving blanket just kept us all clean, and that was really, really nice to have. A whole bunch of your schmogs. My trail bag, which I didn't have to actually use at all, but has things like ropes and D-rings and all that stuff. Just the typical. I've got a snatch block in there. That's just a sleeping bag. Liner, which I did use. 8-pound sledge. I think I used that once to beat some sharp rocks down that I was going to park on. I have a machete I never used. I have a pry bar I never used. A whole bunch of carabiners and bungee type stuff, cargo net. This. So this is a bag. I used to rock climb. This is a bag that I keep my climbing ropes in. And all that, but I also have a spare winch line and my Factor 55 Pro Link in here. That was from a demo that I did earlier, and I thought, worst case scenario is if I break a winch line, I'll just re-spool it with this. But I also have this climbing rope in case we got into a bind where we needed some cordage for whatever reason. Again, I probably overkilled a lot of things. Spare fuel, we started out with 3 of these roto packs, ended up coming back with 2. One of them fell off Drew's bike and busted right up here, so we ended up having to leave that one behind. This is the one I keep with me in the Jeep, and never needed it, and it's been great, but still full. Gloves, D-ring, let's see what else. This I've never used, but I keep. It's this repair wrap fiber fix. Pretty cool stuff. So if you've never seen that, I think you can get it at auto parts stores or whatever. I actually got this at the pool store, weirdly enough. Air compressor got a lot of use, as did the Hurricane, and my hoses. So yeah, that was super helpful. This goes with all that. I have my SAM and the DLA, which never had to worry about. I never had to jack the Jeep for any reason, so those didn't get used. Regular rain jacket. This is my snow gear, my snow pants, and my snow pullover hoodie, which I did use while we were going through the snowbanks, just to stay warm and dry. And then I had a crap ton of just straps oh, there's my gauge, my tire gauge, which Drew used actually more than I did, and then jumper cables. So I think that covers the highlights of everything that we took with us on the trip other than camping gear. And on top of all that stuff, you know, I did have the Pull Pal mounted here, my first aid kit, all my other normal like Jeep tools and accessories. My high lift is up here, and then I have 2 fire extinguishers. Those are there, so can't forget about that stuff. I don't think I would have done anything different. I can't think of anything that I would have brought that I didn't bring. And while this was a lot of heavy stuff, I would much rather have too much, particularly in the way of tools and stuff like that, than not enough, knowing that we could have a breakdown or a need for tools in the middle of nowhere, and we were in the middle of nowhere a lot. So I think I covered everything. That was my camera. Of course, you got to have a nice camera. This is sort of a survival bag, survival kit I keep. It's got all kinds of stuff. I mean, fire starter, mirrors, signal stuff, you know, all kinds of stuff. But so that's it. That's everything I had in the Jeep for the most part. I think Drew may have had a few things in addition, but that's the majority of it all. So thanks for asking, those of you that did. Hope that was helpful. Like I said, it's kind of random, and most of the stuff is not organized. We got good at organizing in the Jeep as we went from place to place and pulled things out. You begin to learn what you're going to need access to more frequently than not. So eventually we got a good system of where to keep things so it was readily accessible. But anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.